Coaching hire 3 and coaching hire 4, we're going to put together because they share some similarities. And the talk on that is what happens when you hire a defensive coordinator as a head coach. Brandon Staley was in our top 7 coaching hire candidates. He is a very good defensive coordinator with a system that is at the front of the line league-wide right now. But let's look around at the other defensive coordinators. Vrabel has been the head coach of the Titans for 4 years. He's going on his 3rd offensive coordinator. Flores is going into his 3rd year with a 3rd offensive coordinator. Fangio is going into his 3rd year, and he's on his 2nd offensive coordinator. This is what happens when you hire a defensive mind to lead the team. You lose your offensive coordinator if they are good enough to become a head coach, or you replace them when they fail. Starting off with Staley, you have to understand the family tree he comes from. He is a Fangio system coach, and he is even more modern than Fangio. The things that he did with the Rams are very impressive. He is taking away the need for the linebacker position. He is doing more with the DBs. He is putting more of the stress on the defensive line. It's very, very modern. It can do a number of different scheme ideas against offense. It matches up really well, and it's a great system. But there's a catch with the Staley system, and that's, well, look at Denver. They were the most expensive defense in the league last year. The Rams, they're in salary cap hell. Part of that is the defense. And even when you look at the defense of the Rams, you realize they have Brockers, they have Donald, they have Ramsey, they have Ashawn, they have Leonard Floyd. That's where they were last year. 4 of those guys are first-round picks, 2 of those guys are generational talents, and all those guys are pretty darn expensive. And the only reason the Rams were able to pull this off is because they stole Darius Williams. They stole Troy Hill. They have a 6th-round pick in Jordan Fuller starting, who played phenomenally well. And John Johnson, who is a star, was still on his 3rd-round rookie contract. Putting that all together and watching that come together that way in one, contract cycle is a very difficult thing to do. Now, if the Chargers' talent can stay healthy and put it together on the defensive side of the ball, they do have a number of the pieces Staley's looking for. Having Bosa, Jones, Tillery, and Linval Joseph across the front line is a great 4-pack to have. The other linebacker is kind of a athlete jack of all trades. Nwosu might actually fit in this defense with Staley. Linebacker-wise, the Chargers have more than enough. Having Murray, having Tranquil, and having White is more than enough to man the linebacker position in a Staley defense. They can finally stop throwing $5 million at Nick Vigil, Denzel Perriman, the ghost of Thomas Davis, and all those silly moves that their front office has been doing with the linebacker position over the last couple years. But then you look over into the secondary. Derwin James is incredibly talented, and he is on his 4th year this year and going to be on a 5th-year option the next year, meaning his price is already going to be expensive 1 year down the road. You look at the corners around there, Chris Harris, not Ramsey, good. Casey Hayward, good talent, but nothing much better than Troy Hill or Darius Williams. Don't even know the 3rd guy, and Adderley needs to be a quality player. As these contracts start to age, value goes up, and that's an expensive defense if you can't consistently turn it over with draft picks. So one way or another, this Chargers defense is going to put a strain on the general manager for the draft, or it's going to put a strain on the cap. And that should be the first thing that gives Justin Herbert nightmares. Because the Staley hire in of itself isn't bad, but then you have to look over, as you do with every defensive coordinator who gets the head coaching job, and say, who's his offensive coordinator? Well, it's Joe Lombardi. Let's talk about Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford went to the Rams, not the Chargers, but looking at Matt Stafford is the key to the Chargers. When Matt Stafford was in his 1st year, he had his lowest grade on PFF ever. Of course he is. He's a rookie. But if you look at the rest of his career, there were 2 years where his PFF grade dropped significantly. The 2 most inefficient years of his career. Those 2 years, his offensive coordinator was Joe Lombardi. The Joe Lombardi hire clearly is a pull out of the Saints system. And when you look at the Saints system, it is predicated on rhythm, timing, efficiency, offense. Rhythm and timing and progressions is not the strength of Justin Herbert. Tools are the strength of Justin Herbert. And this offense also doesn't necessarily like quarterbacks or need quarterbacks with a bigger arm talent because of the way that it's structured. They don't gain a lot from having a quarterback with a big arm talent. Well, that's Herbert's strongest trait, and you're minimizing it. That's not a good thing to do. And this offense also is very dependent on a strong offensive line. And the Chargers' biggest weakness at this point in time is their offensive line. Even with a healthy Bulaga and Turner, they have 2. They need 5. So in year 1, Justin Herbert became a darling. They simplified the offense because he was thrown into the fire. They did a lot of things to get isolation 1 reads open for him. But this offense is very different. And it has shown in the past that it doesn't necessarily work. When you take Matt Stafford from playing high-level football and drop him down, what do you think is going to happen to Herbert this year? Regression. So that's the concern with the Chargers. You could see Staley lasting for a long time and this defense jumping up a significant amount. But did you just put your young quarterback on a coaching carousel at offensive coordinator? Are you going to be able to fix the offensive line when you have a defense that's also going to be very expensive? When you put these factors together, you see why Staley's hired and the coaches that were hired around him is falling down the grading scale a little bit. Moving on to Saleh. This is almost the reverse of the Staley situation. Now with Saleh, you're going to get a great leader, you're going to get a fiery personality, and you get all those leader of men boxes checked. But now we look over the offensive side of the ball and you say, well, they got LaFleur out of San Francisco. And if LaFleur succeeds here, he's gone very quickly. And you might see Robert Saleh ending up on a similar track, much like Vrabel in Tennessee, where a good coach, offensive coordinator, boom, gone. Next offensive coordinator, how deep is his Rolodex? Can he hire another good one? Because if he does, 2 more years, boom, gone. All right, now we're on to our 3rd guy in 4 years. No quarterback likes that. No quarterback likes a changeover in system. So if he doesn't make his coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball extremely deep and have a long Rolodex of names that he can play or bring in as the offensive coordinator, then Saleh's offensive side looks like it could be in for a ton of turnover consistently. And makes no mistake, even with that turnover, that should be an improvement. The Jets' offense for the last 3 years, their system has been garbage. The Gase, Jeremy Bates, has been very, very bad. So it will improve immediately with that hire. But then we turn back our attention to Saleh. As a leader of men coach, how is he as a DC? Is his defense something that can truly tip the scales and help his team? And when we look at San Francisco, the answer should be yes, but it's not. Because if you look at every other team in the league who's running this style of defense, they are failing. They are failing badly. There are a couple coaching schemes. There's one coaching scheme specifically, a couple coaches using it, that is fading away because of the attack of the modern offense on it. But the second on deck who's ready to falter is the Saleh system. And the only reason it didn't look that way is because Eric Armstead's a freak. DeForest Buckner is a freak. Bosa is a freak. And when you have a defensive line that can wreck shop like that, yeah, you're going to be a good defensive coordinator. But guess what? Who else has that? Washington? That's it? For this scheme to work, you need a ridiculous amount of talent on the defensive line. And then behind it, you just need a ridiculous amount of range. It's an incredibly hard defense to keep together. You can go all the way back to where it started with Seattle, where they kept that whole defense together and kept paying guys until the entire defense aged out. And that was incredibly expensive, and it was the only place that truly worked. Everywhere else, it struggled, unless you had, a top 2 pick in Bosa and 2 athletic freaks in Buckner and Armstead who were taken in the early half of the first round, who came to the top of their career right before they got expensive. What's even worse for the Jets is that they've hired a defensive coordinator who's going to lose in their division. It's the simple truth of it. We were looking into last year with the Daboll offense and how this offense matched up against different criterias and defenses. And we had realized we had never seen it versus this Seattle style until they played Seattle. They throttled Seattle. And we said they're going to have a good game against the Chargers. And if Bosa doesn't wreck that game by himself, they would have had a better game against the Chargers. And they still scored 27. Then they played San Francisco. They wrecked them too. They do not match up. The Jets will not match up well against Buffalo. But they also won't match up well against Chan Gailey systems. And they've shown that they don't match up very well against Josh McDaniels. So you can say all you want about the character add that the Jets bring in with Saleh, and you can point to the offensive side of the ball and say that offense is really good. But it's not good to be excited about the offensive coordinator that your head coach hired. You want to be excited about your head coach. And that's not something the Jets should be right now. The leadership, the fire, the character, great. But he's coaching a system in defense that is dying. You're going to build a roster towards a defense that on the NFL landscape is dying. And even worse, it already doesn't work versus the teams in your division. Only the Jets, right? So think of it this way. We don't like the Jets coaching hire. They came in 4th out of 7. We'll cover those other 3 teams in the next video. Love you guys. We need you. Stay strong, and I'll see you on the other side.